Hello, I'm Gareth A Davies, and this is the Championship Rounds for PitchBoxing, where I bring you all the interviews from the combat sports world. Enjoy. Happy New Year, Bob. How are you?
Happy New Year to you. Jesus.
Oh, dear me. Look, let me just ask you again. How close are we to Fury and Usyk?
Well, I think the fighters want to fight each other. The question is where, and the question is under what terms. If the fight ends up in Saudi Arabia, each fighter will make his deal with the Saudis. I think Usyk people tell me that they have a deal that they're satisfied with. And now, if the Saudis are truly interested, they'll make a deal with us for Tyson Fury, and we're off to the races. So, again, the fight would take place either before or after Ramadan, but the fighters don't need a long window to prepare if it's after Ramadan because neither are Muslim.
Yeah. Is it, so there's no deadline on this being made
next week, because I'm going over to London the following week for the Beterbiev Yard fight.
Yeah.
And so I'll be liaison in person with Frank and George, and we'll make whatever alternate arrangements we have to.
And when you say alternatives, Wembley or
do it in Wembley.
Yeah. So a UK stadium in April is still viable.
Yes, I think so.
Does this fight have to get made between these two men? Should we be seeing an undisputed title right now?
Well, I think everybody on both sides wants to do it. There's no question about it. Hopefully, it'll get done. If not, I think Fury has a number of options, one of whom is Joe Joyce, which would be a massive fight in the UK. And in America.
Yeah. Does Fury beat Usyk convincingly in your view?
You sort of figure that, but remember, Usyk is a Ukrainian. These sons of guns are real fighters, Ukrainians, whether it's in war or in the ring. And so you can't count out a Ukrainian. I mean, Usyk, who's beaten him?
Yeah.
Anybody?
No one.
No
one. Yeah, exactly. Can I ask you about another British heavyweight, Anthony Joshua? There's talk about him taking a tune-up against an Australian, Dempsey McKean, who's ranked 50 in the world. Given Joshua has had 2 tough years when he's lost twice to Usyk, if you were handling him, would you give him a knockout gimme, just to get his confidence back?
Well, again, I don't really arrogate myself in that position because I don't handle Joshua. That's a question you can ask Eddie Hearn. I mean, really, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do or what not to do. It's up to him.
I mean, just before we started recording this visually, I asked you about Muhammad Ali in 73. He wasn't world champion, of course, at the time because he lost to Joe Frazier in 71 in the fight of the century. But in 73, you had him against Joe Bugner on February the 14th, Ken Norton, March, Ken Norton, September, Rudy Lubbers in October. And then in 74, he fought two times, Frazier and Foreman, obviously huge. But in 72, he fought 6 times.
Yeah, because our strategy was, after he lost to Frazier, we knew that Yank Durham, who handled Frazier, was old school, and he would keep Frazier away from any serious contender until the organizations made him fight Foreman much later on. And so Frazier was inactive, and we figured that Ali would fight every couple of months, because then the people would sort of recognize him as the heavyweight champion. And that's exactly what happened.
Would you like to see Fury more active? He talked about 3 fights this year. Would you like to see him in 3 fights?
Absolutely. Fury is a great, great entertainer. He's a great attraction. And to have him fight only twice a year is a waste. Remember, an athlete has just a limited time, and so he should make hay while he is still active. And I'd like Fury, if it's possible, to fight 3 or 4 times a year. Why not? He's a great, great entertainer, great attraction, and he'll draw massive crowds whenever he fights.
Time was when all our fighters over here, I'm not sure if you had Marvin Hagler in 73 as well. Would you have had Hagler then 50 years ago?
No, Hagler was, I don't even know if he was a pro then. But
Hagler, 83. In 83, you had Hagler.
83, yes, yeah.
Sorry, Hagler.
I had him in 79. He fought Antifermo.
Yeah.
And they called it. Then he fought 3 times while Antifermo was dicking around with Minter. Minter won the title, won it again. And then Hagler went over in 1980 and fought Minter and won the championship.
That's right. But sorry, my apologies. 40 years ago in 83, again, it was February 83. You had him fight. Did you do him in 83? Fought Tony Simpson.
Yes, that was a good fight. I remember that. It was in Worcester, Massachusetts. That's a city right outside of Boston. And we all went to the arena, which was close by the hotel. And when we came out, or when the show was over, there was like a foot of snow outside. We couldn't get back to the hotel. I remember that.
In those days, it was very much about British and European fighters generally coming to America to prove themselves. A lot of the fighters now, Deontay Wilder could get on his bike and come over here. He's probably got 5 massive fights over here. Your guy, as you mentioned, Artur Beterbiev, fights Anthony Yard here.
Yeah.
Beterbiev fights Anthony Yard here. Times have changed, haven't they? We're going east. You're coming east. We're going east.
What happened was truly, in the United States now, in addition to American football, we have basketball, hockey, and baseball is also attractive. So there's a lot for the sports fan to focus on. In those days, in the 80s and so forth, it was just nothing. American football wasn't that big. It was okay. It was baseball. So boxing was on everybody's tongue. Now, that's not the case, because we have all these other major sports that soak up the attention. Now, as contrast with the UK, which only has soccer, or
rugby,
football,
and horse racing, and boxing.
Oh, horse racing, those are horses. Those aren't people, right? So I never call it. I never, look at horse racing. I mean, it's basically. I mean, you can't interview a horse. Let's be honest about it. But it was.
If they could, they would.
Would, yeah. It's just soccer, Premier League and so forth, which is tremendously popular. And then there's really nothing.
Yeah.
You don't follow basketball. There's no hockey, really. There's no baseball. Cricket is just for a certain level of people who want to watch it. It's the most boring thing ever. So there's boxing. And boxing gets an enormous attention because next to football, British football or soccer, there's nothing else. And so if you want to get big crowds and a lot of attention, you've got to come over to the UK.
Is that why you're happy that Beterbiev is coming here?
Absolutely. If I did Beterbiev and Yard in the United States or even in Canada, it would be a good fight. I would get 4,000 people if I was lucky. And so if I go over to the UK and do that fight, I'll sell out the arena, and there'll be tremendous amount of publicity coming out of the UK, which now, because of the way communications are picked up all over the world. So absolutely, that fight will do a lot more for us in the UK than it would back in Canada or the United States. Times change, and that's the way it is. I mean, I tell all my fighters, if there's a good UK fighter over, fights out of the UK, prepared to go over there to fight him because that's where the fans are.
Obviously, you're in direct rivalry with Frank Warren in this one. Obviously, you promote Tyson Fury together. Would you consider then, and obviously it takes a deal with Eddie Hearn, would you consider doing Beterbiev and Bivol for the undisputed title in the UK?
Oh, would it do well in the UK? Really? There's no Brit involved.
Well, I don't know. If Beterbiev makes a name for himself in 2 weeks' time over here,
I don't know whether. Certainly, from our standpoint, it would be okay, good, if in fact having two Russians fight in the UK is meaningful. I don't know whether it is or isn't. So I'm really never considered the UK for that fight. That being said, Beterbiev gets by Yard and Bivol wins his fight. I think that fight should happen. And I think everybody sits down and finds a way to make it happen.
I haven't got you for the whole day, and we haven't spoken for a while. So I wanted to ask you as well about the lightweight division. What's happening with Devin Haney and Vasyl Lomachenko for the undisputed title?
That fight has been made. We're looking at May 20th as the date, and we don't know where it'll be, whether it's New York or Las Vegas. And the reason that New York is a question mark is because it would belong in Madison Square Garden. And the Garden may not be available because they have a basketball team and a hockey team, both of whom surprisingly are doing fairly well, and both may be in the playoffs, so the building may not be available. But again, it's going to happen, I believe, for certain on May 20th.
It's a big year for the lightweight division. Do you think Golden Boy and PBC will get Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia over the line or not?
Well, they'll be idiots if they didn't, because that is a very, very interesting fight. I think it would do very well, and it would pit a very high visibility African American against a very high visibility Mexican American, and that makes for a lot of interest. So I have obviously nothing to do with that, but I would think that unless they were idiots, they wouldn't have that fight happen.
Well, Crawford and Spencer's never happened, does it? Unfortunately.
Well, but again, we don't know who's to blame. We really don't know who's to blame. I mean, Crawford is a very terrific fighter. He was with us for a lot of years.
That's right. Yeah, many years, yeah.
But he is difficult to handle and negotiate. And apparently he and PBC couldn't come to an agreement for whatever reason. I don't know who is right and wrong. But Crawford is tougher outside the ring even than he is in the ring. I mean, it's just that. It's just really that.
Mm.
Now, I don't know what happened in the negotiations for that fight. I mean, maybe Spence was asked. I don't know. All I know is that the fight didn't happen, and very likely it may never happen.
Your guy, Shaka Stevenson, does he beat all those lightweights?
Well, he may. He may. He's an extraordinary talent. I mean, all these guys are talented. All the four you mentioned, Haney, Lomachenko, uh, Garcia,
Davison, yeah, and Garcia,
and
yeah.
Tank Davis. They're all, but I think Shakur is something really special, really special. I think it's going to be tough for anybody to beat Shakur. But again, until they all fight, until they fight, who really knows? You know. So, I'm very high on Shakur. I think that he is a real great fighter and would be great in any era that he fought.
Does he? Obviously, you've promoted everyone. Really, does he rank as highly in skills as Floyd Mayweather when he was coming through?
I don't know. Floyd Mayweather's career was a lot longer than Shakur, who's in mid career.
Yeah.
But again, that's a good comparison with Mayweather and Shakur. Shakur may turn out to be the equal, if not better, than Mayweather, but he has to prove it, and there's a long way to go.
Well, I've always found him very special. I think I've nailed my colours to the mast, and I think within 2 years he could well be the number one pound for pound if things go right.
Could be. But again, we're blessed. We have this kid coming up,
Yeah,
who's younger and is a lightweight. I don't know if he stays a lightweight. This Keyshawn Davis
yeah,
is something really special.
yeah.
It
No, I picked
reminds
him
me
as my prospect
of
for this year. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I picked him as my prospect for this year. He's got everything
terrific,
against me. Yeah.
terrific fighter, nice kid, very nice kid.
Um, did Josh Taylor do the right thing and eschew all the other fights to take on Jack Catterall in a few weeks'
I
time?
think Josh Taylor is a proud Scotsman, but he's a Scotsman, and he looked at his situation. He was the unified champion, which meant that he had four belts, which meant that he had to pay four sanction fees. That meant that 12% of his purse was going to these organizations. And he said, I'm just as big if I just fight for one title. And the fight with Catterall, because the was somewhat controversial, the
Yeah,
first fight,
yeah.
that it would be massive, and why pay 12% when I can pay 3%?
Yeah.
That was his thinking.
Yeah.
He could have held on to some of these titles, but he affirmatively gave them up, which gave other people chances to fight for him. So I applaud that, and you can't fault him for that.
Bob, you've got a massive year ahead. We're looking forward to seeing you over here with Better Biev in a couple of weeks' time. One of your rivals in Las Vegas, Dana White's been in trouble. I don't really want to create clickbait here at all. But obviously there was an incident on New Year's Eve. Do you think it's been handled properly?
I think they should leave Dana White alone. I mean, he was drinking too much, and it wasn't that he slapped some person randomly with some girl that he had just met. He and his wife had some kind of dispute when they were both drinking heavily. So I give him a pass. I really do.
Okay, it's very interesting to hear. And finally, just to recap, what you're saying is you're hoping to get Fury, yourself and George Warren and Frank Warren, hoping to get the Fury Usyk fight over the line by the end of next week, maybe in Saudi Arabia or the Middle East. If not, there's no deadline on that. But in many ways, it could go to the UK as much as it could go to Saudi Arabia or the Middle
I
East.
would like it in the UK. I think Tyson would like it in the UK,
Yeah,
even if he make far less money.
yeah,
But again, the money we're talking about in the UK could be a mirage. I haven't seen it.
yeah.
It's not in escrow. It's not in the table. It's not a deal. Hasn't been made.
You mean the
The
money in
money,
the Middle East, not the UK? The money in the Middle
the
East.
money in the Middle East. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But the money in the UK would be earned in a normal way by the fighters,
90,000
based
people at Wembley. Yeah, yeah,
based on people coming to the fight and singing "Sweet Caroline,"
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and enjoying themselves and having a great old time. And I grew up in that era, not in the era where you went to places and you got a big side fees, although we did that from occasionally from
Yeah.
time to time with South Africa or or the Philippines or Africa. So again, we'll see what happens. We have a short window to see if we can put it together. George and Frank are in communication with myself and my people on a daily basis. And hopefully, we'll be able to do the right thing for everybody concerned.
Is Joshua Fury still a big fight, by the way?
I think Joshua Fury, if it happens, would be a big fight. If Fury gets himself together and gets a couple of victories, it would be a good fight.
You mean Joshua? You mean Joshua? Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, Joshua, I'm sorry. If Joshua pulls himself together,
yeah.
it would be a big fight. I don't know if Fury Joshua would be any bigger than Fury Joe Joyce.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, so everybody wants to see Joe Joyce in against both Tyson Fury, believe it or not, and Deontay Wilder. People are calling for against Joe Joyce.
That would be, Deontay Wilder is a hell of a fighter, very
Yeah,
dangerous, tremendous puncher,
yeah, yeah.
and that would be really good. The fight would do a lot better, in the UK than it would in the United States, the way things are. But again, yeah, Wilder, uh, if he wants to make really good money, should come over to the UK and fight whomever is available, whether it's Joshua or Joe Joyce or Dubois, when Dubois recovers from what's ailing his knee. So, a lot of good fights and a lot of good heavyweights. We have some pretty decent heavyweights fighting tomorrow night.
Efe Ajagba's on, isn't he? Yeah.
Against Sam Shaw.
Yeah.
That's a really good fight. And lurking out there, he'll be fighting in March, and we're going to keep him real busy, is the guy I think will ultimately succeed Fury, and that's Jared Anderson.
Yeah, he looks a fantastic prospect. Yeah. Bob, bring your coat again. I saw you in December. It was pretty chilly over here for Fury Chisora. It's still cold. It's still raining. It's still dark early. Bring your coat, gloves, scarf, hat, and all those things with
you. I always do. I'm an expert on the UK climate. But this is indoors, so I don't have to worry that much, right?
It is.
Indoors.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. So, it absolutely amazed me when Fury fought Chisora that it was an outdoor fight and 60,000 people attended.
In December.
Right. Well, but 60,000 people at a soccer match in the UK, the weather is the same. So why shouldn't it be the same for a boxing match? Anyway, they did, and it was a big success. I thought, huge success, and we all had a good time, and hopefully get the Usyk fight on and over, and let Fury do 2 or 3 more fights in the year to entertain the people.
Lovely, Bob. It's 1 a.m. here. It's 6 p.m. I think where you are, or 5 p.m.
It's 5 o'clock. Yeah.
5 p.m. Have a great evening on this Friday evening. Thank you very much for your time, as always. It's always a privilege and a pleasure to speak to you. I'll see you.
American football? You watch American football? No.
I don't. No, I don't. But steer me in the right direction.
My Giants play on Sunday. If you want to make some good money, bet $100 on the Giants winning the Super Bowl. Got to win 4 games to do that. But back in about 10, 20 years ago, they did it twice. And this time you'll get 60 to 1. So you get $6,000 to bet 100. That's pretty good.
It is pretty good. I think the last time I saw you, well, I saw you at Spurs, and they just played at Spurs, hadn't they? The week after, or the week before.
They played the Packers.
Yeah,
that demonstrated at that point that they were for real, because up until this year, the last 4 or 5 years, they were like dog crap. They were one of the worst teams in football. But they got a new coach and a new attitude, and we're going to win the Super Bowl.
And it will be against, is it the Bills I'm hearing are the other favorites? Or who is it?
The Bills are an extremely good team.
Yeah, it'll be the Bills against the Niners, yeah?
No. The Bills
against the Giants, sorry.
Bills have to fight to play in that conference. Will end up playing the Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs.
Right, yes.
And that's a pick'em game. That's really
right. But your guys are going to sail through, yeah?
Yeah, but the Giants will have to probably play Philadelphia after Minnesota. They'll have to play the Eagles, who beat them twice, but I think they can beat them this time. And then probably San Francisco, and then they'll be in the Super Bowl. And once they're in the Super Bowl, you can't count them out. Look what happened. One year they played against New England Patriots with Brady.
Yes.
And New England had won all its games, all its playoff games, and the Giants beat them in the final. So my Giants, Super Bowl, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, we're going to win.
On that note, when are you going to put a fight on at the Raiders Stadium?
Well, we are thinking about the possibility of doing that in November in coordination with the Formula One race that we have in Las Vegas.
Okay.
We have massive attendance and everything. So yeah, we're gonna.
Would that be a Fury fight? Would that be a Fury fight? Do you think?
It could be
60,000. Very well. Is it 60,000?
65,000. Yeah.
You've got to be the first to do it. You can't let Hearn be the first to do it, can you?
Hearn's not going to do it. Hearn doesn't know what he's doing over here. That's the truth. I mean, he's really. I mean, Ellaby says it, but everybody, is talking about it. He's like considered a joke over here in the United States. The same way, if I went in and said, I'm going to do a big, massive fight in Wembley, right? Top rank. We don't need any English involvement. We're going to do it ourselves. Well, we'd be fooling ourselves.
Chaka really. Versus Tank or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we'd be, crazy. You have to do it with a UK partner, if I do it in the UK. And there's nobody better than Queensberry, as far as I'm concerned.
Bob, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much indeed. I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks' time. You look so well as well.
Get to bed. Get to bed.
I will. I'm going to have a couple of tequilas first, but then I'll be in bed. I promise.
Yeah, but